What's up, YouTubers? It's me, Johnny, walking on the riverside here in Cambodia, in Phnom Penh. Anyways, I got a question this afternoon, which is probably it's probably last night. I don't know. Anyways, for the person who asked me about real estate in Guatemala, there's not an easy answer, but basically the best place to buy real estate, where you probably get the best bargain, would be the capital, Guatemala. If you're looking at Antigua, I would be surprised if you could buy a place here for $250,000, but you might be able to. When I'm quoting these prices, I'm saying all these prices are in dollars, just for people's reference. Anyways, I don't know if you can see that over there because of the sun, but anyways, this is my first time in the capital. It's kind of interesting. The river is really beautiful here. Anyways, you got some river traffic there. Got some monks doing their walking. Anyways, I don't really know where the hell I'm going because it's my first day here. Anyways, I'll get back to Guatemala. If you go to Antigua, in Antigua, real estate is very, very expensive because of the foreigners. And even though we're going into a really bad recession, real estate may not go down in Latin America, or at least in Guatemala and Mexico. And I'm saying that because so many foreigners are going there now, either to get a residency and a second passport, or just to diversify their assets, things like that. Anyways, going back to me, oh, check it out. There's some river boats. I don't know, probably some kind of tour down there. Maybe these are midnight tours for later this evening. Anyways, getting back to the show. Anyways, because there's so many foreigners leaving Europe and North America, real estate prices tend to be kind of expensive, and there's not a lot of good deals. And I would have thought by now that would change, but it hasn't. I don't think my lawyer would care if I'd said it, but he bought a house, a 3-bedroom place in the capital for 80 grand, 80,000 USD. And you can get properties there for 80 to 120, but it's better if you have $250,000, because then you can get nice places that have been made to the American standard or European standard, houses that will hold their value. Anyways, I'm just gonna stop for a minute. That's what you're looking at if you want to own properties in Guatemala right now. Now you can get like raw land and build. Patrick, my friend, he built a place in Shayla for about $250,000. He bought a land for like 25 to 30 grand, and then he built it. This would be on the edge of the town. Anyways, just to be the edge of town. And to buy property like in the city proper is like 20 minutes into town. It's going to cost you quite a bit of money. I know the viewer didn't ask about Mexico, but there's a few places in Mexico you can get land, like a small condo. I mean, really small, for like 25 to 30 grand. But that was 6 months ago during COVID. I'm not sure you can still get those deals. And what people do is they buy those properties, they fix them up, and they flip them for 50, 60, 70 grand, even though they're actually pretty small places. Now you could go up into the lake area, like Atitlan. Places up there is very, very expensive. It's not cheap at all. Or you could go to the East Coast. Those places, you might get a deal. You might get a deal there. Basically, if you want to get a deal in Latin America, or in Guatemala specifically, you have to be willing to go there, live there a couple of years, get to know people, and they see that you have cash, and then you can get a deal and just sit and wait. Oftentimes a really good deal is based on what they need the money for. So like if they have a medical emergency in their family, they want to sell a piece of real estate for 20 grand. That's what the procedure costs, and that's what you got to pay for. And you got to have cash. You got to move fast. That's typically how it's done. If they don't really need the money, they're just going to sit on their real estate and wait. Anyways, if you've ever asked about taking money out of Canada and put it in Guatemala, now I know this isn't what you asked, but what I would do is, if I could, I'd put it in a bank in Singapore, but I don't know if Canadians are welcome depositors in Singapore. And I'd probably buy REITs, but we're in the part of the economic cycle where you want to be careful what you buy. What I would do is I'd buy income stocks or REITs and buy a property that was financed by a vendor. So like if you had 100,000 and you got $300 or $400 off your money a month coming in, I would just use that as a payment to buy like a small condo or something somewhere. But in Latin America, there's just nothing that cheap that I'm really aware of. The cheapest place I know of is basically Brazil and parts of Mexico. COVID really screwed things up, and if people are not aware, crime has gone through the roof in Central and South America and Mexico. Just a few days ago, I think there was a kidnapping of some people in Mexico, and I don't think people realize the consequences of shutting down the economy. It really destroyed people's lives and businesses in North America, and also too in all over the world. As a consequence of that, crime is just ripping all over the world, but especially in Latin America. And you're starting to see it and hear about it more and more in the media and in the press. And if COVID hadn't happened, things would be quite a bit different in my opinion. But anyways, it happened and it is what it is. Now people are looking to get their money and their assets out of the country in North America. And that's another thing. If you're looking to buy cheap property, the problem is you're bidding against everyone else. Then the second problem is there's people in Mexico who are cashing in their chips and then they're taking their capital, like some Japanese people I know. They're cashing in their chips and they're moving to Guatemala, so you're competing against them too. That's why there's not an easy answer. But I'll get back to what I was saying before. The cheapest place to get real estate and a good deal is the capital. And if you don't like living there, then that might not be an answer you want. There's Shayla. Some of the cheapest properties there are like $250,000. Again, I want to stress, if you go to the edge of towns, you can get deals, but the traffic is so horrible there, that might not work for you. The trouble about moving into rural Guatemala is there's a lot more crime in rural Guatemala, and there's a lot more title fraud. Like can't be sure you own the title. That's why if you buy property in Guatemala, you need a lawyer to make sure whoever's selling it to you actually is the owner of the title. So if you buy in a new development, let's say, you're assured of that more. And but the problem there is because it's in a new development, the title's very, very secure. Your taxes are going to be a lot more. Whereas if you buy a home or a house in older development, taxes are just based on what they used to be, which is usually a couple $100 a year. Anyways, so there's a lot to think about when you buy property there. The biggest thing is foreigners go there, they buy real estate right away, they tend to overpay for it, and then they don't like living there, and then they want to sell and they can't sell for what they paid for it. They got to take a haircut. And nowadays you're bidding against a lot of Europeans and a lot of North Americans. Right now I'm in Cambodia, I'm in Phnom Penh. You wouldn't believe all the foreigners coming here, all the French, Europeans, Americans, everyone. There's a whole bunch of Chinese coming in, Koreans, Japanese. I mean, it's the same in Guatemala. There's a lot of Japanese and Koreans going into Guatemala. So you're competing with a lot of people to buy real estate. So there's really no easy answer if you want to own real estate. what I tend to do is buy income stocks, and if the income's high enough, like right here, like I'm in Asia right now, there's a lot of vendor financing. You can buy a place for 60 grand, not so much, you can in Thailand, but not as nice. Here in Cambodia, you can buy a place for 60 grand. For the first 2 years, the payment might be 200, and then 300 or 400 for the rest of the payment, and it's usually a 10-year deal. In most Asian countries, if they finance, it's 10 years. You put 20% down. And I realize the person asking the question is not interested in Asia, but I'm just saying. In Latin America, usually you got to pay cash. And it's cash and carry. There's very little financing. What some people do is they pledge their assets in a U.S. bank and get a loan. Used to be a low interest loan, but with interest rates high, it's not going to be low interest. Or they pledge their assets in a brokerage account, and again, it used to be low interest loan, and then they would pay cash for the home in Latin America. Now you can still do that. The trouble is interest rates are high now, so it's not as cheap as it used to be. There are also offshore banks that do very similar things, like Key Bank in K Bank in Belize will finance a property, but you're just pledging your assets at the bank, and then you take the money out and buy a house wherever it is you're going to buy a house. They do the same thing in Austria, Switzerland, that kind of thing. Anyways, but if you have cash and you want to buy a place for $250,000, you can. If it's less than that, you're going to have to sit there, get to know people, and get a good lawyer, get a good estate agent, and just be patient and wait for someone who wants to sell. Right now, there's just too many bidders bidding property right now. And now that the economy is opening up, or not the economy, but the world for travel, you're competing against a lot of people. And then, like I said, you're competing against people who are just like cashing in their chips in Mexico and going to Guatemala to get better deals. Anyways, that's just what there's just no easy answer right now. And getting cheap real estate anywhere is getting more and more difficult. If you came to Asia, you'd have more options. You could buy a place, rent it out, and buy another place to live in it if you have enough money. But if you don't want to live in Asia, you can do the same thing in Latin America. You used to get places in the Dominican Republic for 60, 70 grand. I don't think you can do that anymore. The cheapest places I know of are Brazil, and it's the second and third tier cities, and it's usually on the water, which I don't care for. But it's basically like here in Cambodia. They have all these developments developed and no one wants to buy them, so there's some pretty good deals. You can either rent or buy. Right now I would prefer just to rent because things are so cheap. There are some things I'm checking out here in the capital where I want to say it's almost 50 cents on the dollar to rent them, because there's just so much stuff coming on. In Sihanoukville, the Chinese own a lot of stuff up there, and my understanding is they defaulted a lot of stuff, so there's cheap stuff up there. But there's always exceptions to the rules. And for Central America right now, real estate in Mexico and Guatemala, Panama, Costa Rica is pretty expensive. If you want to rent a cheap, affordable place, there's always Nicaragua if you want to live there, but it's pretty hot there. El Salvador, it's never really been cheap, but now that the country's been cleaned up quite a bit because of their gang problem, prices are really, really high there. So if you want to put money in real estate in Guatemala, you're looking at, let's say, 80 to 120 at the low end, and like $250,000 and up for the nicer properties. And Antigua, the lake area, is going to be very expensive. On the east coast in where is it? Where the Garifunos live. I forget where that is, but on the eastern, near the east coast, that can be expensive or cheap. It just depends. You got to stay there a while and look. The other thing is it's hot and humid. The other thing is if there's not a lot of rule of law in Guatemala, that part of Guatemala, there's a lot less rule of law. God, what's the name of it? I just can't think of it. But anyways, there's there. Then where I normally live is in Quetzaltenango, Shayla, and it's kind of cheap, but not anymore. Even the rents are going up. There's so many people flooding in. The rents are pretty high now, so even there, buying a place can be expensive. Now you can always go to the edge of town, but the problem is when you go to the edge of town into the countryside, you have more and more chances of getting scammed because the title isn't right. You have more and more chances of problems with neighbors and stuff because they're more rural out there. You have more chances of crime because you're just way out in the boondocks. So you gotta just recognize that if you go to the edge of town in any of these places, the safest places to live is in the these bigger cities where you're in a nicer development like the towers or like the guarded gated communities. But some of the older middle class guarded gated communities can be 80,000 and 3-bedroom homes. They're very nice, very safe. If you didn't know you were in Central America, you would think you were in the US. It's like Seattle, Washington in the 80s. It's very quiet. You don't hear the traffic, lots of trees, safe places to jog. But like I said, you gotta wait because it's kind of competitive there. You gotta wait for someone who's looking to sell. And you gotta have a car there if you're gonna live there because these are on the edge, I don't want to say the edge of town, but it's not in the city center. It's going towards it's going towards El Salvador. That's kind of a nice area, and it's very affordable. And but it's much like can only compare it to Seattle because that's what it reminds me of. Anyways, more ships coming in, or boats. That one's pretty cool looking. Anyways, I don't know if you can see the Carlsberg sign. Kind of doubt it. I wish I could zoom in, but I'm just gonna keep walking. Not much is going on. Sun's going down. So far, I like it here. I'm gonna check out some real estate while I'm here, and then not seeing Oakville. Got that other place where the pepper is. I'm gonna check that place out. There's some good deals there if you want to live on the coast, rent-wise, and if you want to buy a condo or something. Now, of course, it's really hot here, so a lot of people don't like hot. So far, I found Cambodia to be very safe. It's pretty affordable. Lots of French people, lots of foreigners. Food's pretty good. There's a lot of variety of food here if you want international type food and stuff like that. I'm going to upload this video, so I can't think of anything else to say. Maybe I'll go on a tour tomorrow along these boats. They look like little ferries. Anyways, down here where I'm at would be a cool place to jog in the morning. I forgot to bring my jogging shoes though. I was telling my sister I forgot my jogging shoes. Anyways, hope you guys are staying safe in North America.